Hey, Eli here. Today I'm going to give you my thoughts and review on the X100VI, whether you want to hear it or not. I know there's a lot of videos out there on this camera, but I'm going to give you my opinion and my thoughts. So all subjective, just so you know where I'm coming from. I'm a dad. That's what I bought this camera for, and a husband. And I want to photograph and capture my family, but also be able to hand the camera off to them so they can take a picture of me because I'm rarely in the photos, especially when you're using a big camera like this. It's not so easy to use. So yeah, I spent a month with this camera. Four main things I photographed with this camera were I went to the fair with my daughter, she's 6, and my wife, and went to Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and Idaho, and then yeah, just around the house, and I went on a local hike. So this camera is great, compact for a compact use, just something that's easy to take with you and just have on you, other than an iPhone. iPhone's great as well, but I don't always want to be pointing my iPhone at people or bringing it out. This is a little more fun. And so yeah, we're going to get into the pros and cons of this, so you know where I'm coming from. Like I said, I'm a dad, husband, and I photograph weddings, families, commercial work, headshots, portraits. I do magazine work. Pretty much, I photograph anything under the sun for the most part that involves people. I don't go out and do landscapes and sell them. Maybe I will someday, but that's not what this camera would be good for anyway. So yeah, let's get into pros and cons. Pros are, number one on this camera would be the flash and the compact size. So it's very small. You can put it in your pocket if you want, and it's got a built-in flash. The flash is a pro and a con. The pro is it's built in. It's always there. You don't have to put it on. You don't have to bring a flash with you. The con is it only works in single mode, or what is it called? It is called, under the settings, still image, but it's essentially a single shot. It doesn't do continuous images. If you put this in continuous, the flash won't work. And if you're wondering why your flash isn't working, it's because it's not in still. So that just limits you slightly to, it doesn't sound like a lot, like you just, can only click as many times as you click, but the recycle mode on this flash is horrendous. So I'm not going to flash blast everybody right now, but just so you know, it doesn't work that great, doesn't recycle well. The higher the ISO, the better the recycle or the quicker. So if you're going to shoot on 1000 ISO or like even 4000 ISO, it still looks good with a flash. That's going to save your recycle time and your battery and help it recycle quicker. So anyway, pro and con, it's pretty cool. But yeah, if you're wondering why that's not working, that's why. And it's also hard to access for the most part. You can't just turn it on. I wish there was like a flash switch or a flash button. I couldn't find that in the menu. What I found was I just kept the flash on and set the front button here to the flash settings. I set it to 1 negative stop. And so it's more of a fill and not overpowering. And then it gets some ambient light, also lowers that flash power again, along with high ISO. And then I just go over to continuous, which it doesn't work anyway. And then I'm just shooting continuous mode. So, which is what I'm mostly going to use anyway. So yeah, anyway, that was my quick workaround. You press drive, you go into still image, then your flash is engaged. You go drive, back out of that, your flash is disengaged. So anyway, little tip. Again, compact. It's got a tilty screen, which is great. The autofocus is improved. It's not amazing. I've got the R5 I'm filming on now, and then I've got the R5 Mark II. It does not compete with either of these autofocus systems. R6 II doesn't compete. Sony A7C2 is incredible. Autofocus does not compete. It is slightly better than the GFX 102, which says a lot for this camera. That's still great. We have eye tracking, face tracking. It's pretty good. So it would be a notch above the GFX 102, in case you're wondering, and it would be like 10 notches below the R5 too. Anyway, next up, battery life's pretty darn good. Never took the battery out, don't have a charger, just plugged it in, never got below 50% on the battery. Using it all day, just hiking at the fair, didn't get below that, did great. The dials are fun. I do wish that they just had a dedicated ISO dial versus this pull-up thing, which is really cool and it's just neat. It's a cool invention. But I just kept that on auto, and then I used the compensation dial to adjust my exposure. So, because I like having just a physical dial for everything, like the ZF, Nikon ZF was pretty rad in that sense. But yeah, all the other buttons on this camera are great. It's got a little joystick. You can press the dials if you want to set those to a different setting, but I don't do that. It does help with things zooming in maybe on your playback. but I do prefer non pressing dials, or I like it when the dial's solid, then it's just easier. Just yeah, when it moves in, you're just kind of like, oh, what's happening? Just whatever, it works. Um, yeah, price, pro and con. Right now, these are expensive. I waited for mine, and it was, retail, but I could sell it for more. It's crazy. Yeah, so depending on who you are and your budget, price may or may not be a factor. Maybe a pro, maybe a con. I do think it's a good deal for what this camera does. It's impressive that this camera can do all that it does. So accessories. I bought two accessories. I bought the little filter cover, which makes this thing weather resistant. I do live in Oregon where it rains and snows. And so this is the Nisi, it's called. That is NISI. I'll put a link in the description. But this one I bought because the main reason was it had a built-in filter which protects it, and you can put the cap on this particular one and it'll fit. I don't really care about the cap so much, but if I were to sell this, that'd be a pro for someone else down the road. And then I just don't use a cap. I use the filter. That's it. Keeps it compact and it doesn't add much to it. And then I bought the grip from Small Rig, and I think it's a good grip. It really does help you hold it, but it does add a lot of size to the camera, which I think is somewhat of a con. It's pretty big, but it does add grip. So, and it adds an Arca Swiss plate, which is nice. I did use that most of the time, but I do want to try out the Peak Design mini clutch or micro clutch. My friend Timothy Musa has a video on that with this particular type of camera. It's the previous model. He did a really good video on it. So based off his video, I want to test it out and give it a shot on this camera. It essentially goes around right here and can give you a little bit extra security, but like not a lot of girth or size. It also has an Arkham Swiss plate you can put on there. And then it does cover the SD card and battery, but again, like I just plugged it in USB-C and charged it, not a big deal. And you can offload images that way too. So you don't really need to access that door ever, unless you're like shooting a ton with this and you have an extra battery, which I don't. So I'll just keep a battery bank with me, and I could just plug in USB-C and charge it if I was getting low on the fly and really needed to charge it if I was traveling with just this camera. So cool. Cons, flash. Buffer's not great. Yeah, it's just, V90 card in here, SD, just shooting RAWs. It's going to buffer out pretty quick and stop shooting, which is fine. I don't need this camera. It's just weird that they have such high speed shooting modes in here that it doesn't really keep up. So not a big deal, but that's a con. Autofocus, pro and con. It's better than the previous model, that's for sure. I never owned the previous model. I rented it twice, once for Iceland and then another time just to test it out. And that my kid was little and there was no way I was going to keep up with her. That is like the test for cameras, either sports or children. If you can keep up with either of those two, then the autofocus is pretty premium. So yeah, anyway, next would be the lens is a little soft, which is fine too. Like you're going for that vintage vibe. The focus isn't amazing. So it reminds me a little bit like when I'm using this of like when my parents had their wedding photos, like it wasn't great. My uncle took the photos. They're amazing photos. Like I look back and I'm like, they're priceless, but they're not great photos nowadays standard. But I don't think that, I think that obviously photos get better with time. They gain nostalgia. And yeah, I think this is doing a great job for memories. White balance is really inconsistent. I just set a white balance, I think, to cloudy because I did a series of photos. You can set this to infinity to just like walk away from the camera and be in a photo, which is great. It just keeps clicking like 1 a second, I think. And all the photos were a different white balance. Like it was up and down, cold and warm, which was weird. Shooting RAW anyway, so it's not the biggest deal. But if you're going to shoot JPEG for the film simulations, probably just going to want to set a white balance, which I think most people do anyway. The EVF is a little small, but it's really cool. That turns into an OVF, optical viewfinder. So electronic viewfinder is where you see, nowadays, you see a little screen in there. And optical viewfinder is the old rangefinder style where you look through and it's just glass with little frame lines. The frame lines were fun in the optical viewfinder, but I didn't feel like the focus was as accurate, or maybe it just didn't indicate as much the focus acquisitions. Again, when this does indicate focus acquisitions, there's like little boxes around the eyes or the head, not always actually in focus, but which is kind of weird. Maybe it's just the lens trying to catch up to that focus point, but and it's just showing you that it is, but but whatever. A lot of images are soft, some aren't. We'll jump into the computer now, and I'll show you some images that I was able to capture. Again, at the fair, I did a hike here in Oregon up to a really pretty lake, and then we went to Idaho, and then yeah, it was a fun trip. We had a week together, and that's what I would use this camera for, just jumping out, running out to dinner. So here we are in Bend. This is a new restaurant called Hawkeye Huckleberry Lounge. It's basically Austin, Texas themed. Focuses on a shirt here. Yep, enough said about that one. Yeah, we are at a high ISO 4000, but you can see what we're getting out of that as far as, well, down here, the grain. These images are all JPEGs. They're all edited with my new preset coming out someday in the future, who knows when. It's just a basic preset for weddings and just everything. And so here we are with a flash. And again, on her shirt a little sharper maybe. And one of the best movies of all time. Like I said, this is all subjective, in my opinion. But I think it's a pretty good movie. Just some hats and guitars, because it's cool. And these guys went all in. They put a camper back here and some cow heads and some tents. Pretty fun. This camper leads into a secret lounge. Pretty cool. And did it focus on her? A little soft, maybe. And my wife, sister-in-law. All right, red eye. It's an issue when the focus or when your flash is close to your lens. You get red eye, but I think red eye is coming back. It's vintage. So I'm going to leave it. And this is a cheeseburger on Texas toast. This is a sign. This is me with long arms trying to do a selfie, and you can see it focused on my ear. So we were at the fair, this little display. I focused on them, got it, and handed the camera off. Someone said, "Hey, you want me to take your photo?" And it focused back here. So, and this goat attacked my daughter. And a pig, and this, good old haunted house. I love this image. I wish it was a little wider. I got back as far as I could, but it's still fun. Yeah, I used the DS Soft for the film simulation profile in this edit. Not super sharp, but sharp enough. I tried to focus on my daughter riding by on this and didn't keep up with her. And let's see. Yeah, just some nice red flare. I love the red flare out of lenses and camera manufacturers. I find Sony to be a little more purple and green, and Canon red. So I prefer Canon flares. Yeah, just some fun stuff. Me trying the slow shutter, 60th of a second, pretty decent. Yeah, these lines are straight down here. Yeah, so there's a little bit of movement on this thing. And again there, and then my wife. And on this one, my daughter was spinning around really fast, and I was actually able to capture her for the most part every time she flew by, which was pretty good. A lot of these images will be available for download. Not all of them, but a lot of them. Here we focused on the bar. Couldn't capture her, but again, she's going really fast. So pretty good. And this one, I brought up a couple stops. And this is my cousin. This one's in focus, and this is where it was kind of a bummer. Flash it just didn't focus. Low light. Yeah, but another one. And then this here, just trying to slow shutter. A little shaky at the top. I'm at 15th of a second. This one here, I was able to keep the lines pretty straight. So I think 15th of a second is the max that I was able to achieve. And my wife, very capable using it. She doesn't know how to use a camera for the most part, other than click the shutter. 6400 ISO is pretty good. There's a lot of lights around, but still, there's, not a lot of dynamic range, but this grain looks great. So these are all edited JPEGs, just so you know. Nice and sharp, natural light from those. And then this kid was spinning around in Mach 1, and I was able to get the flash out and capture her a little bit. A lot of these, I think half were in focus. And then, yeah, running at me, couldn't keep up. My dog, you can see her eyelashes. This is in daylight. And my wife in the greenhouse. And then this is a lake we hiked up to, me and my cousins. I handed my cousin the camera. She, yeah, she was able to get me the top of the mountain. I swam out to this little chunk of ice, jumped in. And then no excuse for this one being out of focus. Probably operator error or just the camera isn't getting it. This one here just looks like a little like soft-ish or like almost like diffraction. I don't know. It's like it wants to be sharp, but it can't do it. 64 ISO. It's great. An ice cream in Twin Falls, Idaho on our road trip. There's some nice red flare for you. Love that flare. I'm going to try and speed through these faster so I don't hit my camera record limit. And flash on. This is in the room. A little bit of grain, and I push this a couple stops to get her brighter. And flash, and just road tripping. Here we are in Driggs, Idaho, where my wife grew up, at the Emporium, getting huckleberry shakes. And I wish I would have had a 28 mil because I would have gotten the top of this sign. But this is a local guy honking at everybody. And nostalgic cowboy bar in Jackson Hole. The rainbow. We're out for dinner for our 13th year anniversary. And you can see this is pretty good. 4000 ISO. This is weird light in here. Not a lot of color. Not washed out. But yeah, works. And ended up on a hike. And not too bad. Yeah, looks great. And our hike up to this lake, Delta Lake. This is a panoramic that I made manually. So I took 5 photos and I stitched them together in Lightroom. We'll see later a panoramic that's in camera that is not that great. I wouldn't recommend using the in-camera panoramic feature. But yeah, turned out pretty good. I photoshopped a bunch of people out or used the generative AI in Lightroom tool. Did pretty good. And I jumped in this lake. It was very cold. And Oregon Gear Guys, my other channel, I was reviewing these shoes from Topo. They're great. And Autofocus. This is one where I had 20 images and every white balance was different. And then they were all out of focus. But you know what? It's fine. Then that was on a tripod, so that's probably why. All right, then these we handed off. I took this one, obviously, and then I handed this one off to my father-in-law, and he got us in focus. It's great. And then the kid getting a free ride. My wife using the camera. She did great. These are all on, I think, auto ISO. And then 2.8 on the aperture. Pretty good. Man, they're pretty. D-tones. All right, and then this one I go back to. This is my second time making this video because my cameras stopped working. Let's just check them. They are working. We're looking good. All right, 23 minutes in. I think I got a 30-minute record limit. Let's hurry up. 12,800 ISO, getting some color artifacts, kind of weird. This was me just being dumb. Auto ISO, 2000 ISO, or 2000 shutter. And then here, I lowered the shutter, and I don't know why. Probably my kid didn't sit still. That's probably why. But you can see that difference is, you know, that's where I should have been. Cloudy outside, window light. And then here we lowered the shutter to 1/15th of a second. Her eyes are in focus. She's spinning the umbrella. And then these are fun. Side by side, flash and non-flash. So no flash on the left, flash on the right, same spot, a little out of focus. Like I said, it's inconsistent, but you be the judge, which one you like more. And then we are at 6400 ISO, which is nice grain structure, no weird color artifacts, not bad. And then 3200 ISO at night with a flash, pretty clean. So, like I said, I crank my ISO when I use a flash anyway at weddings so that I don't overpower my flash and I get a good recycle. So the recycle on this flash is horrible, but it helps if you go to, you know, 3200 ISO. And backyard where we're staying. Little backlit shot, nice and sharp. 2.8. Oh, I guess, yeah, if you go to 2.8, you do get a little increase in sharpness. Okay, here's one with flash, or sorry, one with flare, one without, so you can see the difference and how much it washes out. That flare control. Again, me being dumb and leaving it on a high shutter speed is my bad. 10,000 ISO here. And I love sunset colors out of these cameras. I mean, we all love sunset colors anyway, but I just love how rich and reddish these are. And then here's a fun one. Download these and you be the judge. Got the GFX 102 on the right and the Fuji on the left. So, you know, if you saw my XT5 versus GFX video, you can see resolution isn't everything and sensor size isn't everything, but it does help. All right, and then same thing here. These two side by side, got some ducks in there to compare. This is a panoramic made in camera that only outputs JPEG, and I don't like it. It's longer than I wanted it to be. I didn't have control over how long it could be. And then there's just a lot of weird, like right here, changes. But you know, is what it is. I would say just do it manually. Flash indoors, a little soft. Here we are at Freak Alley Gallery. I can't talk. In Boise or Boise. And if you're from there or not. And I'm just messing around with all these fun colors. Wife. Actually, that was a great one. Nice and sharp. A little bit of background blur. And yep, these are great. Me being dumb, trying to recreate that. And some more flare there. You can see this little bit of rainbow artifacts there. I love that. And then out to dinner. These are nachos. They were delicious. The funky taco, it's called. And this fun downtown center of Boise. So, cool. All right, before my camera runs out of space or stops recording, I think this is an awesome camera. When I bought it, I thought I would send it back or sell it. But now I'm starting to get attached to it. Yeah, I'll probably keep it. So next up is going to be, I'm going to do a review on the Canon R5 II. I've got 2 weddings I'm going to go out and shoot this week. One this week, one next week in Seattle. And yeah, I just took it out, tested some autofocus. Pretty awesome. So very impressed, excited about that camera. So should you buy the Fuji? Probably. If you can get your hands on it and it's in your budget, I would recommend it. At least getting out and testing it. You know, it's probably going to hold its value for quite a while based off the the last one. So thanks for watching. And yeah, I don't have any sponsors of this video, but I just want to give a shout out to my buddy El Rancho Supply, Sean. He makes blankets and now apparel. He just gave me this shirt right here, and him and his wife. His name's Sean Carr. If you don't know him and you're in the photography industry, you should know him. He's awesome. Another wedding guy. They make these blankets out of Oaxaca. Sean's wife is from Oaxaca, and her family's down there, and they make these amazing blankets. And just got some really cool apparel. Go check them out. If someone buys a blanket, he buys me lunch. So, yeah, have a good one, and I'll catch you later.